Okay, so we are going to get started here in just a few minutes, but I'm just going to wait and have a few more people join in. And I can kind of tell you a little bit about how it's going to go. So super happy to have you all here. Give me a little bit, maybe let's do like 30 seconds to 1 minute. It's going to be a very short period of time, and then we'll get going. So I have more people joining super fast. So that's great. I'm super excited to have you guys all here. And if you want, you can kind of let's just introduce ourselves. So I'm Sean. I'm from Boulder, Colorado, as I'm sure most of you know. But why don't you go ahead in the chat? So you'll see at the bottom of your screen or phone or whatever you're using, you have the ability to chat. So you can open that up and let me know. First of all, let me know that you can hear me. That's important. And then let me know also, yay, Pam. Yay. Okay, so this is great. So let's just get a little introduction going. Okay, everyone can hear me. That's awesome. Oh, from Michigan. Yay. I'm from Michigan. Love it. Oh, yeah. Love it. This is great. Germany. I just saw Germany pop up. That's exciting. So fun. Okay, great. So let's chat a little bit about how this will work. So the chat, me personally, I won't be looking at the chat once I actually start talking because it's very distracting, as I'm sure you can understand. So that chat is more so for you guys to chat with each other. And especially like during the course of the webinar, if there's something that maybe you didn't catch that maybe someone else was able to catch, then you can ask in the chat about that if you think someone else can help you. And then if it's an actual question that you have that comes up as part of the webinar that you want me to answer afterwards, after I'm kind of done chatting, then put that in the Q&A. So 2 different places you can chat and you can do Q&A. Q&A is where I will be actually taking the questions from when I have time, hopefully when I have time at the end. I'm quite a talker, so we'll hope that there's some time. And so look for that. And we'll get to that afterwards. So how this will work, I'm basically, so you can see my face now. You'll still be able to see it a little bit once I actually start the webinar, but I do have slides that I want to use to show you guys because this is obviously a different avenue for me. I'm sure most of you know that I am a podcaster, and if not, then you will find that out soon. I'm a podcaster, so I don't have the ability to I guess, use graphics and charts and things like that I think for the purpose of keto for hormones is actually really important. I have found that when you can see what I'm talking about, it hits home a little deeper than just when I am just talking to you, through your earbuds and on your walk or whatever, whenever you listen to Keto for Women. So that's why I'm doing this. And I think it's just a really important topic to take to the next level. And so that's what we're going to do today. So I will have slides. You will be seeing the slides, and then you'll see me kind of up in the corner too. And then once those slides are done, I'll come back to your full screen, and then we'll do the questions and get to as many as I can, which is not, unfortunately, it's not going to be as many as I already have. So I will do a kind of an update, an additional thing on Keto for Women with just your questions that we'll be able to do as a follow-up. Okay, so that's how it's going to work. Yes, you will get a recording. It will come about 24 hours from now. Unfortunately, that's the best I can do with this system. So in 24 hours, you will get a recording of this everything that we're doing right now. You will get that. So yeah, don't worry about that either. You can watch it, listen to it as many times as you want, whenever it works best for you. And that's how it will go. All right, so are we ready? Let's do it. So I'm going to share my screen. Actually, this is kind of the hard part because, technology. But I'm going to share my screen and show you the little slides that I have. So if you guys follow me, then you may have known that I was just in March, I was at the our Keto Ladies Conference. And this is actually the exact slide, the exact talk that I did there. And I would just, it's such a good talk, and it really does make a lot of sense that I just decided to keep it going and do it for you guys too. Okay, so we will get going here. This is obviously the kind of start page, but let me see if I can really quickly. This is kind of the hard part because it doesn't show me. Sorry, one moment, please, while I really need my little mouse and it doesn't give it to me unless I request it. I don't know how people do anything without a mouse. It's kind of weird. Darn it, it's not working. Oh well. Okay, so for those that don't know me, I'm Sean. I love chocolate, which if you know anything about me, you know that I love chocolate. I also love to hip hop dance, which you also probably know. But I'm a holistic nutritionist, and I came to be a holistic nutritionist through my own journey, which is the case, I think, for most people that get into this health space. It's because something has happened in their own lives that prompted them to figure it out for themselves or their families or loved ones, and then realize, wow, this is super powerful stuff. And now I need to share it with the masses, which is exactly what happened to me. And I won't go over into huge detail my actual story, but there are some things that I want to share. So this is a list. This is a long list with all these pictures of me in the past. This is actually within the past 5 years, these are my pictures. This is me. Lots of different hairstyles, first thing I will say, as you can see. But also, I think I share these pictures and I share this list of the things that were going wrong in the matter of these 5 years and in this time of these pictures, basically to show that, smiles, muscles, whatever the case may be, different hairstyles show a different story than what's actually going on internally for a lot of people. And that was the case for me. Like I was deadlifting 300 pounds. I was running a Tough Mudder in Aspen. I was doing a figure competition. And then of course I landed in the hospital, which I don't think was coincidence. But so really this was just, I wanted to show these pictures just to show that, internal health is a lot different. It often looks a lot different than what we presume it to look from the outside. And that's what I think is really important about these photos. So that's why I just decided to share these in particular, because in every single one of these, I guess especially in the pink shirt, and when I was deadlifting, I was eating about like 5 or 6 foods because I was on AIP. I was still not getting any of the, I guess, hopeful resolution by being on AIP, which is the autoimmune protocol for those that don't know. And it's pretty strict. And then even beyond that, I had an even smaller window of things that I was able to eat because of my leaky gut and food sensitivities. But yeah, I was not having a period in any of these photos. Again, that's been in the past 5 years and I'm 37. So should be definitely having a cycle that is very regular in that time of your life. And obviously chronic low cortisol we're going to talk about this throughout the day, but the impact that this had on my body, the stress of, getting to a weight that was far too low and a body fat percentage that was far too low and the extreme measures I had to do to get there, to then going and training for a Tough Mudder, to then training for a figure or a powerlifting meet and just everything that went along with it, just so stressful on the body, not to mention the rest of your life, right? And everything else that was going on. But I was also really sick with chronic inflammatory response syndrome, which I know a lot of you probably have heard me discuss quite frequently, because that was really the turning point for me in my health, was figuring out that toxic mold exposure was to blame for a lot of my random health issues. And that me being in the hospital bed there was kind of the peak where it just was, I actually ended up having an emergency appendectomy and part of my colon removed too. And it was just kind of the peak to see that my body was really telling me something. And that's when things really started. I just started digging, which is what I will, of course, always tell you guys to do. So that's my quick story. Of course, I could talk about it more, but let's move on and just obviously, as you can see today, and again, if you know me at all, you know how much it took to get to the place where I am now. But the place where I am at now, I've never felt better in my life. I've never been more healthy in my life. I've never had so much connection to my body and freedom around food, and just not having to worry about all these things that I spent my entire life worrying about, and having normal menstrual cycles, and, you know, having energy throughout the day, and then being tired at night when you're supposed to be tired, and all this stuff that we strive for. And sometimes I think we get to a point where it's like, maybe this isn't going to happen. Maybe I just need to settle for feeling this way or that. But you don't have to. You actually don't have to. And I was definitely in that place where I thought I was just going to settle. And look at me now. I mean, I ended up not taking that route and feeling better than I ever have. So I think that that's a really important message for all of you as well. Something that I'll always, again, promote. So of course, I mean, how did I do that? How did I get to this place where I didn't know if this would ever be possible? And, you know, determination. I'm definitely a very determined person. I wasn't willing to just say, all right, well, whatever. Keeping it positive, and especially when you are in a place where it's just, you're not feeling good. You know, you're not feeling like things are ever going to change or get better. And it's hard to stay positive. Trust me, I know it's so hard to stay on that path, but that really, truly, and even my doctor said, in your attitude during this whole process is what made you heal far quicker than a lot of others that go through this protocol. And speaking of protocols, lots of different protocols I was on, lots of different testing I did, both on my own, since I am a functional practitioner, and also with a mold-specific doctor. But of course, as you know why I'm here, the ketogenic diet was so huge to this process, so incredibly huge. It is something I'm so grateful that I did. And so, you know, I have such, I don't know, love for it, I guess, because it truly did give me my life back. 100%. I credit the keto diet. And I know that that's a case for a lot of you already. I know that a lot of you are already feeling that, or feeling like you could get there, feeling like keto could be the right thing. So now it's just kind of this place where you're figuring out that that spot that works for you, figuring out the keto that works for you, which is why we're here. One of the reasons, and why I do what I do, is because I want to help you find that. So, but here's my version of keto, my rules. This is why I have like these little quotations, because one thing is that I just don't like, I despise, in fact, the amount of rules that are within the keto community, and how long that list can get, and how confusing that list can get. And I think it deters people to some degree that should not be deterred, because it's keeping them from being healthy, and they need keto to do so. And I think it also is the people that aren't deterred, it's keeping them from doing keto in the best way for their body, and instead listening to some blogger, excuse me, or podcaster or whoever who's telling them to do it the way maybe that worked for them, but that's not the way that works for you. So these are the only things that I will really, truly promote about the keto diet, that I really, truly want as many people to follow as possible. And that is, first of all, we all know, and most of us, unless you're not someone that's familiar with keto, which I think, excuse me, most of the people listening are, it's a high fat, moderate protein, low carb. That's the approach. That's how you get into ketosis, but it's not a diet. It's a lifestyle. It is something that you are doing to heal your body, to get into this place of optimal health, and then see what happens from there with your health and with your hormones and with your weight and with everything you're trying to work on once you get to this place of healing. So it is not a diet. It's a healing protocol. It's not short-term. It's long-term. And with that, because it is a lifestyle, because it is healing, it also needs to be nutrient dense, high quality, and nourishing. That means we need to be eating the highest quality foods, organic whenever possible, pasture raised meats, grass-fed, grass-finished beef, wild-caught fish, like doing everything you can to get the highest quality foods you possibly can. Because within keto, you're eating foods that you're just eating more of specific foods that could be very inflammatory or very anti-inflammatory. Oils are a great example of that. Getting the highest quality oils like coconut oil, avocado oil, olive oil, getting the highest quality you can within that, staying away from these inflammatory oils like canola oil, vegetable oil, just these crap seed oils that are just doing nothing but damaging your body. Same thing with meats, being grass-fed, grass-finished versus grain-fed meats takes it from being anti-inflammatory to inflammatory. So that's really important because we're healing our bodies, and it's not going to happen. Even if you are keto, you're not going to be able to heal anything if you're still eating that toxic food. And then nourishing. So we'll talk a lot about that today, and just making sure that you're getting the micronutrients that you need to heal your body too, which is very, very hard in the keto community. And with the stigma around keto, to do that. It's super hard to do that because you start eating less food. So we're going to talk about that. I get really worked up. As you can see, I already want to start talking about it. Food freedom and intuitive eating. So really working on finding out what works for you, which means you're not following those keto rules, and you're finding out what works for you. Maybe you do better with more carbs. Maybe you do better with less fat, more protein, whatever. You have to find that out for yourselves instead of watching what other people are doing, following their percentages and their macro counts and calories and all that stuff. You need to do you. So that's really important within keto. And then hugely important is that it's not just low carb. We're not just reducing our carbs and thinking that the world is going to change, because it's probably going to change, but it's not going to be in the good way. So if you're just low carb, you're going to be eventually causing more damage, and we don't want that to happen. Again, we'll talk about that coming up. And then I just showed a couple plates of my food because this is where I think the nourishing aspect comes in. And like, as you can see, this isn't an actual full day for me, but it would be could very well be 3 full plates of food, sometimes some snacks, making sure to get all my micronutrients, tons of veggies, huge plates of veggies, different sources of high quality meats, a little bit of carbohydrate with some seed crackers. Sometimes I have more, sometimes I have less. But just wanted to show my food plates, which I'm sure most of you have seen if you follow me on Instagram. Okay, so today we're talking hormones, right? So we just talked about keto. We have an idea of what keto kind of should look like as far as this healing protocol. Now we need to talk about how it can relate to our hormones. Today, when I say hormones, which I'm going to say a lot, I want you to know, this is just kind of clearing the air, that I'm specifically talking about your sex hormones. So those include cortisol, pregnenolone, progesterone, estrogen, testosterone, and DHEA. Of course, and I've seen a lot of this. Maybe I'll do another webinar and we'll talk more about these other endocrine systems, because keto has a great impact on your thyroid. Again, when done correctly for a woman. Side note, your metabolic hormones, so really getting your whole metabolism regulated, your hunger versus satiety regulated, your insulin, obviously that's a huge benefit of going keto, and a reason why a lot of people start in the first place is to get that blood sugar under control. And then great for your digestive situation too, your brain obviously, and that whole, our brain has hormones too, and getting that all figured out and cleared up. So, but just to know, today we're talking specifically about your sex hormones. Got it? Got it. Okay, so just a little graphic I made here for you, because I think it's really important when we talk about hormones to really truly understand if you are actually having hormonal imbalance or not. And I will tell you, just from working with hundreds of women, testing and seeing, seeing their results, that most women do have some sort of hormonal imbalance. It's honestly just the way the world works. It's just what we're living in right now, what's going on in our lives, how much stress we're under, stresses we don't even know about or think about, but that weren't here 100 years ago. So it's just a natural thing that's going to happen to most of us women. So now that we know that it can happen to so many of us, we have to figure out what to do about it. So just to go back to, you can see that some of these are obvious as being hormonal imbalances, but quite a few they don't necessarily, that's not the first thing that you think of, right? So cellulite, for instance, depression and anxiety, stretch marks, like these kinds of things that aren't always talked about as being hormonal imbalances, actually are and can be fixed. Okay, so this, I think, is a really important piece to the puzzle to determine for you if this is something that you're dealing with. Sorry, I don't know what is wrong with my voice. I'm just so excited that I'm already losing my voice. So when you have balanced hormones, if you are a cycling female, and I will talk about non-cycling menopausal symptoms, so we'll get there, don't worry, because I know there are a lot of menopausal women listening. You will have a period about every 24 to 35 days, I would say for me is considered normal. If there's something outside of that, then I start questioning things, and it will come at that same time on a regular basis, month to month. So you'll know, okay, it's been 28 days. I know I'm getting my menstrual cycle. And quite frankly, when your hormones are balanced and you're menstruating, that's pretty much the only way that you know it's coming, because your PMS is so minimal. Maybe some light cramping day of, maybe a slight energy dip earlier in that week, a couple days prior. Your hunger may change a little bit. You might become more hungry because your body's just working on some things. It's okay. You might notice some of that kind of stuff, but you're not going to notice this intense change in your mood or cravings or strong cramps, breast tenderness, those things that we commonly associate with getting your period. That actually isn't normal. Those are actually signs of a hormonal imbalance that could be really keeping you from, being at your best. So another really important thing, which is something to talk about, is that you can be menstruating, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're ovulating. So two different things, and you can definitely bleed and basically shed your lining without actual ovulation happening. So really important to start, as a woman who wants to get to know their body better and get healthy, to start looking for and doing the basic work to find your signs of ovulation, which would be mid-cycle, obviously between days, I'd say like 12 to 16, somewhere in there, you're going to have these changes in your body. And that is a sign of ovulation. So your cervical fluid changes, it turns into more of an egg white texture, and it will be basically like stringy, I guess is the best word to say. But yeah, so that will be a significant, very obvious change. Your temperature raises and your cervix drops. So these are all things I'm not going to get into today. I actually am planning to do a discussion on this topic on Keto for Women. So we'll talk about learning how to read your signs of ovulation and how to do that. But if you are a cycling female, you should absolutely be doing that. You should absolutely know when you're ovulating. And then, because there's a really large chance that you're not. And of course, if you're on birth control, you're not going to be. Hormonal and birth control, I guess I should say. Your energy stable, your mood stable, you're finding your healthy, happy weight, which I just talked about this week. Really important because, these are all signs of your body just kind of operating smoothly. And feeling good is obviously the biggest sign. Big one, being able to have normal muscle tone. So if you're working out and you're lifting weights, you should be building muscle. If you're not, it's a sign of hormonal imbalance. And you should be able to see that you're getting stronger and maybe have more muscle tone that you might be able to see or feel. That's really important too. That's often overlooked. And then, like I said, as far as we're talking about menopause, and this is something, even if you're not even close to menopause, still something to consider for the future. Menopause should not be this massive life change. Like of course, your body's changing, your hormones are changing, you're going to feel that to some degree, but it should be pretty minimal and a pretty easy transition. And then postmenopausal, same thing, like not really having hormonal symptoms really at all is a sign of a good, balanced menopausal state. And then, so if you're still experiencing hot flashes or experiencing hot flashes when you're transitioning. I would say, some minor hot flashes would be normal, but beyond that would be something to look into. And there are many women who go into this menopause transition, perimenopause, and then going through menopause, who start with a hormonal imbalance, and then it just continues on through that transition. And that's what causes your menopause to be hard. It's because you started in a not so great place. So really the ideal situation would be to get those hormones regulated before you even get to that point, before that even starts. And then menopause should be pretty darn easy. So we're going to go through a couple reasons about why we have hormonal imbalance. So the very first one, and the case for, I'd say about 85, 90% of the reasons why we have hormonal imbalance is because of stress. So it's so funny because I was creating these slides back when I was getting ready for the Keto Ladies Conference, and I found this photo to put on here. And it was, as I was doing so, I realized that around my computer, I had like 5 separate to-do lists. So I'm just as much a problem as anyone else. I know it's just life. It's just life. But so we can work to find some ways around that. But yeah, so we're going to talk about stress. And this is where I really want to really look at this slide because it's so important. I think it just makes so much more sense than me just talking about it for you to actually see this. So we're going to look at, again, if I had a mouse, I'd be able to kind of show this to you, but it's not letting me for some reason, so I can't. But I want you all to look at pregnenolone. So that is kind of this precursor hormone. It's a sex hormone, steroid hormone. That is the precursor hormone to basically all of our other sex hormones. As you can see, it's kind of at the top of the chart. So we want to follow that red/orange line, that little arrowed line. You can see pregnenolone goes over to progesterone, but continues on to cortisol. Cortisol is our stress hormone. Cortisol is what our bodies trigger to create and release when we are under stress. That stress could be running from a tiger, which is what it was in the paleo days. It could be getting stuck in traffic, or getting in a fight with your significant other, or not liking your job, or not eating enough food, or trying to be keto but really only being low carb, or these are things we're going to talk about today. So that's what I'm saying. So I just want you to see, I want you to really, really understand. Here's another one. Talking negatively to yourself releases cortisol. So when we need cortisol, which for us women is most of the time, most of us stuck in a very chronic, always turned on cortisol needing state in our body. So when we need that cortisol, that pregnenolone is going to go through that red line, the red arrows there, and make cortisol and not make progesterone. Progesterone is a super important female hormone. Super important, very necessary, very easily and very commonly not there or really low in women. And this causes estrogen dominance. So estrogen dominance is extremely common in women, and it's because of this state, like cortisol producing chronic state of stress. Your body's going to say, okay, well, I need cortisol more than I need progesterone. So I'm not going to produce that. I'm going to go to this cortisol where it's needed for whatever stressor, and that's that. So progesterone gets really low. And then we will not have a normal menstrual cycle. We will have super bad PMS. You'll have weight gain, weight loss resistance, water retention, not be able to sleep, because progesterone is known to be kind of our calming hormone. So it will be the one where we can also have regulated moods and, like I said, regulated sleep and that kind of thing. So then when we need cortisol, we can also go down. You can see where pregnenolone would also go, which would be to create DHEA. And then the DHEA is responsible for making testosterone and estrogen. So again, if we need cortisol, that is going to take precedence over creating testosterone and estrogen. And again, low testosterone, super common in women. This is definitely going to, again, be another reason for moodiness, inability to lose weight or weight loss resistance or weight gain, inability to build muscle. Just lots of stuff. And then of course, low estrogen, super important, super common. But again, most of the time estrogen will be low, but progesterone is so much lower that it still will be an estrogen dominant situation. But in many cases, from what I see in my practice, most women are just low in everything. Just low hormones. And that is cause for not feeling really well. And I just want you to see, I really wanted to break this down for you. Why? So this is exactly what's happening in your body as to why hormones are low or out of balance, because we can't shut off that cortisol. And once that cortisol, once we don't need it, once we're just kind of chilled out, then we go back to producing pregnenolone can go to these to help build these other hormones. And then we get balance again. Okay, so that's one reason why we would have hormonal imbalance. Of course, there are others. PCOS, big one within the keto community, and rightfully so, because has been studied, has been shown, tons of research on the fact that PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, can be reversed with a ketogenic diet, and really by taking out and lowering those carbohydrates pretty dramatically. So in PCOS, you have a high level of insulin and a high level of androgen. So your testosterone and your DHEA, those are your androgenic hormones. Those are going to be elevated. The insulin and the high androgens kind of go together. And because of this, so luteinizing hormone, that's LH, and follicular stimulating hormone, that's FSH, those are basically our body's triggers to give birth, to create a baby, essentially. So these are going to be your triggers for everything that happens in your menstrual cycle, and that you ovulate and that you shed your lining every single month. And basically every day, LH and FSH are different every single day of our cycle. And with PCOS, your LH is elevated and your FSH is lowered to the point where you don't ovulate. And that's really kind of perpetuates this situation and perpetuates these hormones being out of balance. So reversing out of that would be great and can be done with keto. And I know a lot of you have already listened to that episode, the Keto for Women show on Friday's episode with Jimena about PCOS. And so you'll know what she's backing me up. Another reason for hormonal imbalance, obviously pregnancy, postpartum, and breastfeeding. In pregnancy, your progesterone and estrogen are elevated, of course, to keep that baby safe and developing. But I really think that the biggest the biggest reason why hormonal imbalance happens with this situation is not the pregnancy, it's after. It's afterwards. And it often comes because we get pregnant before we have these perfect, awesome, balanced hormones, or we're working on our stress. And then that kind of situation comes back full circle. So when you're not pregnant anymore, your body has a hard time regulating that. And I think it also just is because your hormones are going back to normal, but they're not always going to do so in this like super awesome, balanced, amazing fashion. And all of a sudden, it takes some time. It's going to be a little wonky. And I know a lot of women don't ever fully recover their hormones to where they should be postpartum, because then you have a baby, and that's stressful, right? A different kind of stress, a great stress, but it is stress. So a lot of women have a hard time gaining back their hormonal balance after having kids. So that's another reason, possibly. And then, of course, menopause, again, hugely in the keto community, great resource for those going through either perimenopause, menopause, or postmenopause, really great. And in the case of menopause, your progesterone lowers. And it's still there. I think this is the most important thing I can say to all menopausal women. You still have hormones. Your hormones are not zero. If you've gone through a hysterectomy, you still have hormones. Hormones are not going to be zero. So there still is a reason and a case for you to work on your hormonal balance, especially if you're having symptoms of not having a normal balanced hormones like hot flashes or weight gain. As I know, those are the two most common ones: fatigue and lowered energy, inability to produce muscle, like those kind of things. If you're experiencing those, then you could still be out of balance as someone in menopause, for sure. It's not like all of a sudden you don't have to think about your hormones anymore. That's definitely not the case. But then also through menopause, your estrogen is just wonky. Some days it's up, some days it's down. It's all over the place, which is just part of menopause. We're all going to go through it, right, as women. So it's just a matter of making that as simple as it can be, which is really taking care of your body before, during, and after. And keto will do that for you, but it is not the time to add more stress to your body. And hormone imbalance is already stressful. Menopause, already stressful. You probably had a stressful life leading up to menopause. So then, trying to like go on a super diet and eat 800 calories or something crazy and not nourish your body is not the way to get through menopause. So that's what I see a lot of women doing, and it is super sad. So please don't do that. And then the last one we're going to talk about for why you would possibly be going through hormonal imbalance is the hormones that we're putting in our bodies that aren't actually ours. And I'm not going to really go on a huge rant today because I'm going to save that for Keto for Women because it's coming up next week or 2 weeks, where I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant about birth control. But I don't know why, but there hasn't been enough talk in the keto community about the dangers of being on birth control or in just hormone replacement therapy. And I need to tell you about that. So I'm going to do it because it is not my preferred method, and it can be very dangerous and just not good for your body. And really, if we're talking about balancing our hormones, and I have so many people who come to me and say, I have this, and this going on with my symptoms. I think my hormones are out of whack, but I'm on birth control. Well, I can't help your hormones if you're on birth control because you're controlling that, right? So same thing with hormone replacement therapy. We can see kind of how it's doing, what it's doing to your body, and it could be the reason why you're experiencing these, the weight gain or the depression or anxiety, acne. I mean, I get it all, right? And there's a good chance that the synthetic hormones you're putting in your body are the cause for that, like really great chance. So we can see that. But what I'd rather you do is get off of it and talk to your doctor. Of course, I'm not a doctor. So talk to your doctor. It is a prescription medication, and work to get off of that. And then see what your hormones are doing when you're not on birth control. Because often, especially, and I was on birth control for 15 years, birth control pills. And it took a while after getting off of those for my hormones to regulate. It took probably 6 to 8 months, I'd say, for my hormones to be anywhere close to normal because, my body hadn't done that for 15 years. And that's something that is just going to kind of like die off until you have your body do that again. So super passionate about it, but I'm going to save that talk. But that is a reason for hormonal imbalance because your body's just not doing that anymore for you. Okay, so let's talk about how keto is going to help us with all of these things now that we know our possible reasons why we would have hormonal imbalance. So we'll talk about these in more detail, but here is the list of how keto can help us regulate our hormones. And this is different than what you may see some people tell you about keto, like especially with calorie restriction and dieting and that kind of thing, may not be stuff that you've heard before. So this is where it becomes a little bit different to do a keto lifestyle that's good for a woman's body versus doing a crash course keto diet. Different. Totally different. And we'll talk about that. Okay, so let's talk about that first one, healing blood sugar. So wonky blood sugar, wonky is like the best word ever, is a stressor on the body. So of course, I think we know this, but now that I have the ability to show you, I'm going to show you. So remember, we just talked about our adrenals making cortisol when we're in this chronic stressed out state. And when our adrenals are requiring cortisol and our body is stressed, that happens instead of producing hormones at the right capacity, right? So it's kind of a one or the other situation. So you can see, if you look here on this little chart, that this is our roller coaster. This is our blood sugar roller coaster. When we eat, It goes up and then it plummets. And when that plummets, you can see adrenals fire cortisol. So right there, you can see that if your blood sugar is on this roller coaster, it's a stressor on the body. That stressor is then going to create hormonal imbalance, which we just learned. So this is the main reason why we can use keto, and why I think keto is such a great resource for women who are having hormonal imbalance, because likely to some degree you have blood sugar dysregulation. And I say that with quite confidence, and even coming from women who have done paleo. There's tons of women who are paleo who have blood sugar dysregulation. Super common. People who have gone from diet to diet, so yo-yo dieters, excuse me, past calorie restrictors, those again are all kind of the perfect storm to create a blood sugar issue in your body. Of course, there are people with, pre-diabetes, insulin resistance, diabetes, those kinds of situations too. Hypoglycemia, huge, especially in the dieting, with a dieting past. Often hypoglycemia is reactive hypoglycemia too, whether it's reactive post-meal or just overall. Quite common in someone that has had a past of eating too little food. And again, super stressful, right? Super stressful. And even within keto, of course, a ketogenic diet is going to get you basically what keto does. If we're looking at this actual graph, you're staying where that normal glucose level line is, and then kind of those red dotted lines, you're just staying in that spot throughout the day. Whether you eat, it's great. It's kind of nice, right? Because having a high fat meal, fat does not cause a much, if any, blood sugar response. Protein causes a moderate blood sugar response for some people, very different, but person to person. And then obviously carbohydrates do cause a blood sugar response, because that's what you're eating. So you're basically eating sugar. So it's going to cause that situation. So you basically want, what we're looking for when we do a keto specific diet for us, for you as an individual, is what keeps you in that little happy zone. What keeps you on the baby roller coaster and not this excessive roller coaster, not the Magnum roller coaster. So that's what we want to try to figure out. And it's going to be different for everybody. That's really where it's totally different. But one thing that I do want to say is I often see that women who are doing keto and not eating, like you're skipping breakfast, you're skipping lunch, you're skipping dinner, you're fasting, you're whatever, keep in mind, you need to stay within that little happy zone. If you get too low, which happens quite often in people that skip meals, whether you're keto or not, but just because you're keto doesn't mean your body just stays up in that level, whether you eat or not. A lot of times that significant amount of time spent not eating plummets you. And if you're not ready, if you don't have the capacity, your adrenals aren't ready to get there, then that's going to be a stressor, and that's going to, again, work to keep those hormones imbalanced, which we learned. Okay, that was a long one. Sorry. So this is but that goes into this because I'm such a huge proponent, and I find this so important in the keto community, and nobody's talking about it. We need to eat enough food. You've got to eat enough food. You've got to end the calorie restriction and the dieting and the yo-yoing and all that stuff, because first of all, it's an actual stress on your body. Physically, it's stressful to your body. But it's also mentally a stress too, right? Like that's super stressful to be like, and even I know a lot of you will say, but it makes me feel better if I open up my Fitness Pal and log my food. It makes it not stressful, but really that's really getting to a point where we're seeing food as a number and we're not seeing food for what it is, which is just nourishment. It's just getting you through the day. It's just providing your body with the nutrients it needs to be its absolute best. So, really, I think making that distinction and really working to get back to that place where you see food for what it is, for me, again, I come to this with experience. I know exactly what you all think, or a lot of you think. It really makes such a huge difference to just eat because you like food. But anyway, of course, let's go back to this. If you're not, If you're not eating enough calories to fuel your body and its activities and its function throughout the day, like, I think it's very obvious that that is a stressor on your body. If you are not fueling yourself appropriately, you are going to stress your body out. And that stress is going to cause that chronic cortisol state, right? So then that whole situation happens where all of those resources are going to making cortisol and the rest of your hormones are put on the back burner. So this is where we are not at the place, and really never should be again, of undernourishing our body and thinking that things are going to go well. Like, it's just not. It might for, 6 weeks, maybe at the most, but eventually things are going to start kind of, that cascade happens, which if you've ever done any sort of calorie restricted diet, you probably have this situation where you feel good because your cortisol is all up and all over the place. So you feel good for a period of time, you lose weight, XYZ, and then all of a sudden your energy's gone. You stop losing weight, you plateau, you start feeling like crap. You can't think clearly at your job. You start fighting with your spouse. So like, really not good. Not good. So that's just a huge stress on the body to not eat enough food. So keep that in mind if you truly want to heal your body. And the reason this is if you take anything away from this, because I know a lot of you are here to learn a little bit more about weight and your weight loss resistance or weight gain or whatever it may be. Or maybe you need to gain weight and you can't. It's also a huge issue. So, but remember that there are a lot of reasons for weight loss resistance and weight gain. A lot of them are hormonal. Some of them aren't, but a lot of them are hormonal. And so you trying to undernourish yourself and calorie restrict to lose weight is actually only perpetuating this situation even more. You're only making it worse, and you're only making it harder to dig yourself out of when you actually start doing the right thing. It's going to take that much longer to dig yourself out of that. So that's if you take one thing away from it, let it be that. Okay. So moving on. So again, like I talked about, the mental aspect of this whole restricting and having good foods and bad foods and things you can't eat, and things that are going to get you out of ketosis, and, spending all this time testing yourself and counting and weighing and measuring. Just like all that. I know it doesn't seem like a stress, but just because you don't see it that way does not mean that your body doesn't see it that way, and your mindset and your brain doesn't see it that way. So please keep that in mind too. And then another thing, when you don't eat enough food and you undernourish your body, of course, you're not providing enough nutrients, but you also causes blood sugar issues, which I just talked about in the last slide by spending too long not eating. You can start having leptin and ghrelin missignal, and those are your satiety, versus hunger signals. Like that can get thrown off, which is stressful. You start binging because now you're like super hungry and you're thrown off, and those hormones are all a mess. So then you have this binge, and then you start, I'll just start on Monday. You start to do that whole thing. All that is just stressful, and food should not be stressful. Keto should absolutely not be stressful. It's like the least stressful situation ever. I swear, it really can be, I promise. So we want to get to everyone to that point. Okay. We're back to this slide, but only just really quickly so I can show you one quick thing that probably some of you may have noticed when we looked at it last time, and that you can see above pregnenolone, we have a precursor to that, which is cholesterol. So we need to eat a high-fat diet to provide the building blocks to produce our hormones. So that needs to be in enough capacity to have the cholesterol to build enough hormones. So a lot of times why women start having hormonal imbalance in the first place, especially in the ages of the low-fat, fat-free days, was because they didn't have that cholesterol. They didn't have that precursor. They didn't have it in enough quantity to produce the hormones that they needed. So I think that's really important too, and another great reason to just eat all the fat. And then I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this slide, but I want you guys to see all these reasons. And I think you know most of these, but it's always a good reminder. And if you want to know more about what ketones actually do in your body, head to that episode on keto for women. I don't remember the number, but I do have a whole episode about the actual benefits of producing ketones. And this is just some of them that you can do. But when we're talking about stress and hormones and women, producing ketones, so actually getting into a state of ketosis, is what I call body homeostasis. Like your body's just happy. It's happy. It knows there's plenty of energy, resource available. Like things just work really smoothly and easily. It has a way easier time producing ATP, which is our energy. And so things just go really well, right? When you're actually producing ketones. So again, we can kind of down regulate that stress. So things that were previously stressful when you were a sugar burner, just actually physiologically in your body are no longer. So that's something also that's, I think, really important, and just something that would really take it from, maybe just trying to eat healthy or be paleo or low carb or whatever, and actually produce ketones. So it's hugely different because you get all these amazing things. Okay, I need a time check. Sometimes I just talk way too much. Oh, wow. Okay. This is going to be long. Sorry. Okay. So, and then the last one, which is not technically related to keto, but something that I really want to start making part of the situation, is that you've got to also do the other work. Nothing is going to work. No keto protocol is going to change your hormones and fix everything. Especially, I guess, when we're talking about hormones, because of that stress response, until you do the other stuff. You have to make it a full lifestyle, which includes, practicing gratitude, meditating, going to yoga, trying not to overthink about the future or the past. And biggest one, like something that doesn't happen in the keto community nearly enough, is being positive towards yourself. Not speaking negatively every time you look in the mirror, or, wishing you looked different or acted different or whatever, and really embracing the now. Hugely important. Okay, so some of the reasons why, and this may be the case for a lot of people listening, you're doing keto, but you're still experiencing some hormonal imbalances. Things aren't quite right, still feeling some of the symptoms. So why is that? So here are my biggest reasons. First of all, you're not actually in ketosis. You are in what I call low carb purgatory. And low carb purgatory means that you're eating low carb. So you've reduced the glucose that your body is used to using as fuel, but you haven't produced ketones, which is the other option for fuel. And so your body is just freaking out. It's like, I have no glucose, which is what I'm used to using, and I have no other way to get energy. So what am I supposed to do? And that's where, low carb purgatory, your body's like, I don't know what's going on. So actually get into ketosis. Make sure, do the testing, do what you need to do to find your version of keto and stay there. That's what will get you into a good place where you can actually heal your hormones, because obviously low carb purgatory is super stressful. You have no energy source, super stressful. You're still dieting and undernourishing, like I said, because that's super stressful on your body. And that's something that's, kind of, I guess, one of well, maybe all of these are the reasons why some people will say keto is not good for female hormones. These are the reasons. And this is why, because these things are what's happening and not what we're actually going to be doing. So you're still dieting and undernourishing. You're not eating enough food. You're using it as a diet. You're trying to fast before you're ready. And your body sees that as stress. And you're not going to be able to heal those hormones. That's all there is to it. It's super simple. It makes so much sense if you just think about it. And yet women won't stop underfeeding themselves. It's like this chronic problem that we have as women, and it has to end, because you have to get those nutrients. You've got to stop causing that stress on your body. We have enough stress in our life. You haven't looked at the other stressors. So like I said, you can't just do keto. It's got to be the full lifestyle. You've got to look at everything. You've got to make sure your sleep is on point, that you're moderating your stress in other parts of your life, that you're getting out of or reframing toxic relationships. There's so much more to it that obviously could be, maybe it will be someday, a whole nother webinar, but you've got to start looking at that stuff too. Huge one, there are still other factors present. So many times, one of the reasons why we have that stress that then causes that down-regulated hormonal imbalance is because there's something else going on perhaps in your body that you don't know, like a gut issue, a food sensitivity, a thyroid imbalance, inflammation, blood sugar issues, like the list goes on, right? So anytime you have any sort of health issue, that's again going to be a stressor on your body. And that was the case for me. My health impacted my hormones and my lack of good health, I guess. And then sometimes you just need more time. You know, a lot of times in keto, we expect everything to happen in 3 weeks, and it doesn't. A lot of times it might take 3 years, quite honestly, but a lot of times you might just need to be patient. Okay, we're just going to go through these quick because I know most of you probably already know these, and I want to get to some questions. So, my top 10 keto for women tips. First of all, I mean, most of this is going to kind of correlate to everything we've been talking about. So it's reiterating that, but this is putting it into one little package here. Take it slow. So this is a big one. This is what I do in the Fat Burning Female Project for my Fat Burning Femalers is we take it slow because, again, that transition into ketosis is a stressor on the body. So basically, everything that I do, as you can see, especially as it relates to keto, but really in all of life, is to try to keep stress as minimal as possible. And part of that is spending the time to transition into keto safely. Because if you go one day and I'm like, I'm paleo, and then the next day you're like, I'm going to try keto, that's super stressful. It's a big change on your body. There are a lot of functions that are happening and taking place for that to happen. And it's definitely a stressor. If we take it a little slower, it's not like we're able to mitigate that stress. We're able to mitigate quite a bit of keto flu, which is really nice. And it just feels a lot better. The whole process feels better. And you learn so much more about your body in those weeks. When you're kind of making that transition a little slower, you learn so much about your body, which is so important. And the diet mentality, keto is a lifestyle. I won't talk about that more because I already talked about it a bunch, but so important. Please don't use it as a diet. Please do it for long-term health gain. Get over your fat fear. I think we're getting there. I think most of us are getting there. But sometimes it still is tough. And I always, again, hear this in the course, in the class, that women didn't realize how much fat they actually needed to eat. You have to eat a lot of fat at the beginning of your ketogenic journey to get you into ketosis, to provide your body with that signal that that's what you're doing. So you really need to take the time to do that appropriately, or take the time, but then also take the right amount of food. So make sure you're eating enough fat and don't have that fear that too much fat is going to make you gain fat or whatever we were told. That's not the case. Fatty acids provide so much else in our body that we need fatty acids for more than just like fat storage or producing ketones. We need it for a lot of things. So you can eat a lot of fat and it will be just fine. And I promise you will be so sick of eating fat but well before it's too much fat, like well before. You're not going to want to eat an entire stick of butter. I mean, maybe you do. If you do, go ahead. But it just doesn't sound that good to eat that much fat. So let's not worry about that. Get into ketosis. So I'm a huge fan of women testing their ketones, at least at the beginning. I don't think that it needs to happen all the time or forever or every day or anything like that. But I think when you're trying to make sure you're not in low carb purgatory, and actually producing ketones at a good level for you, you've got to test. You've got to make sure that you have to know that. And you can also use testing and making sure you're in ketosis to learn more about you and what your version of keto looks like. So it doesn't have to, you can kind of know like, hey, I can have a sweet potato every once in a while and I'm still in ketosis the next day. Cool. Then you know that about you. So you don't have to follow someone else's rules anymore. So you can use that to your advantage. You can, of course, like I mentioned in the beginning, eat real nutrient dense, organic, properly laced food whenever possible. Like that's just, in my opinion, a no-brainer, no question, must happen. Don't force fasting. This is a huge topic in keto. And I could talk about, again, a whole nother webinar just about that. But what I really just want to say here, because everyone's different, and again, it's something where you need to decide what works best for you, but don't force it. Wait until you're ready. Wait until it comes naturally. And also, in my opinion, and this is a very strong opinion, and I think it's very founded on proof, but in my practice, you must wait until your adrenals and your hormones can handle it. That's big. Your adrenals and hormones can handle it, which for a lot of you here is not the case. That's why you're here, because you want to learn more about your hormones. You probably have a little bit of an inkling, at least, that maybe your hormones aren't totally on track. Not the time to fast. Not the time. Super stressful. It's a stressor. Like, you can understand that not feeding your body is stressful on the body, right? Of course, there's great benefits to fasting, but just wait until you're ready. Wait till your body's ready. This is a big one that it's really hard to even talk about, but I really just think that even making the decision that you want to start being intuitive with your food, that you want to start listening to your body and what it's asking for. Like, the biggest thing that I can say, the easiest way to start this is kind of go for a couple days and not have any idea what you're going to eat. Like, not pre-plan your food, not think about it. Just like go get a bunch of stuff from the grocery store that looks good, get some veggies, get some meats and fats, whatever things you normally eat, but what sounds good for the time. Have no plan and go to the fridge, go to the cupboard, open it and see what looks good. That's the easiest way, I think, to get started with intuitive eating, because it could be breakfast, but maybe you want, like, I don't know, a sandwich. Well, that doesn't really happen in keto, but it could be like a keto bread sandwich or a lettuce wrapped sandwich or something. But, maybe it's something that wouldn't normally happen at that period of time for you. So this is the best way, I think, to get started, but it makes such a big difference. And, you can use this too to just figure out that maybe you do need more carbohydrates before bed or before workouts or something, because you're listening to your body. You're learning that the way that your body is signaling to you. Like, if you don't sleep well, something might need to change. If your workouts suck, something might need to change. So you can use all of this to where you're starting to actually think about how you feel and what your body is telling you, because any sort of symptom is really just your body communicating with you. So when you see it that way, then you can kind of use that to your advantage and find a way to find what works for you. Don't be afraid to break the rules. I brought that up earlier. Just do you. Do you. It makes such a big difference. Be patient. Another big one I brought up, especially, whether you're trying to heal anything or not, I think one of the biggest things that we are missing within keto is patience, because I don't know, I get it. I see it too. There's plenty of people being like, oh, in 2 weeks, I lost 20 pounds and I feel better than I ever have. That is definitely the exception. Definitely the exception. The rule is more so that it's going to take time. It's going to take time. Everyone's different. Again, in the Fat Burning Female Project, some women feel great after 4 weeks. Some people still need 4 months. Some people start working on it a year later. It totally depends on you, what you have to heal, what you have going on. You have to, eyes on your prize and keep pushing forward and just be patient. And last one, get more informed about your body. So again, this is going back to the case where, maybe you do have hormonal imbalance, or you have something else going on. You don't feel as good as you think you should with keto. You're not sure you're doing it right. Or, there's all kinds of questions. Of course, we always ask ourselves questions when it comes to this kind of stuff. But this is where you have to remember that you have the power to figure that out. You have the power to understand your body and to learn more about your body and to heal that. Not any, you don't need to keep reading blogs or whatever, because they're not answering about you. You've got to get more informed. You've got to do testing. You've got to work with someone and do what's right for your body. Find out that information. That's the only way you're ever going to heal what you need to heal. You can't just keep guessing and throwing supplements at it and trying keto and then trying this and trying that. You've got to know. You have to know. And I take, again, something that comes from experience too, is that's what needs to happen. I did it for myself. And then that's just them all together, which you can go ahead and when you get these slides, you can take a picture or whatever, just in case you want to remember. Okay, so now that we know all of this, right? But yet we still have this block. We still have our mentalities. We still have looking at the food on our plates. We still have thinking about our body and our size and our weight and what we want it to be. And we just we still are so stuck. And that's keeping us from the one thing that could unstick you. The one thing that could unstick you is working on your hormones. And yet we can't like swim out of the tunnel of all of this mess in our head and all of the thinking about our bodies and our weights and all that stuff to actually heal what would do the trick. So just keep that in mind. It's this cycle that we're constantly in. And so this kind of leads me into talking about the Fat Burning Female Project, which most of you probably heard me talk about quite a bit, I'm sure, but it is starting this week. Friday is the day where course materials start, and then we start again. We all start as a group on next Monday. But I think that this is, for me, the Fat Burning Female Project is the starting point for all of this, for learning how to be intuitive with your keto, finding the keto version that works for you, making sure you're doing keto correctly, making sure you're not causing more stress on your body because you're trying keto and not doing it correctly. So this is, that's why I created the class a year and a half ago. And it's just like my favorite thing in the world. I just love it so much. So this is what you get hanging out with me for 6 weeks, making sure you're making the transition into a ketogenic diet safely and effectively. Again, we're taking that 4 weeks to get into ketosis before we start learning how to be intuitive. So we do work on the intuitive piece so that you don't have to track your food. And we're not ever tracking via any sort of app or anything like that. It's just my own little system that I've created to make sure you're getting into ketosis the right way. So we do all that, and then you get to be intuitive with your food, and it's amazing. And then you're forever a part of the Fat Burning Female Project, which is this group of amazing, amazing women. I cannot talk about it enough. We have the most supportive people in one place in the keto community I've ever could imagine. It's just the best. I'm so excited about that part. So you have that forever. And then we're doing Fat Burning Female retreats. And I have more courses that you are then qualified to participate in, which would be a Happy Hormones course where we test your hormones via saliva. And so so like I said, you're being informed about your own body. You're getting that information, which is showing you like, okay, I have estrogen dominance, or my cortisol is way out of whack, or whatever. So, you're getting that in the Happy Hormones Project. And then the Good Gut Project, if you are having gut issues, that's a huge reason for stress on your body that can't be controlled and can't ever be figured out because it's actually in your gut. So as soon as you know what's in your gut, and again, we do functional lab testing in that class with a GI panel and a food sensitivity panel, so you can work on that stress too, and just finally get rid of the gut issues, which I've had them. I know it's like it's so stressful when you can eat like 6 foods. So yeah, we're doing all of that in Fat Burning Female Project. And because I actually did a webinar, which this is my second webinar of my entire life. But because I decided to do one and talk about keto for hormones, I decided to have it be surrounding here. So it actually, while one day enrollment is tomorrow for Fat Burning Female, the May class, I'm opening it up early. It is currently open, and I'm giving you $50 off because you are here listening to me talk for over an hour. It's my way of saying thank you for being here. So yeah, if you are someone that wanted to do Fat Burning Female, maybe this time or maybe whenever, I don't ever put it on sale. So this is kind of a one-time thing. And so if you're interested, I would do so now and get your $50 off. Make sure you use the coupon code HORMONES in all caps, HORMONES in all caps for your $50 off. And the class sells out every single time. So it probably will be sold out by end of day tomorrow. But if not, then you have till Thursday before we get our course materials to use that code. So yeah, I hope to see a lot of you there. It's going to be so much fun. It's just the best. Okay, so I'm going to take this screen off now, and then we'll see if I can get some of your questions. This is going to be the hard part. Okay, so now questions. Here we go. Oh, they pulled right up. Okay, so let's see. We have, if you're cool, I'll do about 10 minutes of questions if you guys are cool with that. And then, okay. Here we go. Shannon, I understand high estrogen can be a cause of hypothyroidism. That is my interest in keto for women for hormone balance. I feel like it makes sense to address my imbalances I have with food versus medication. Just bought Al Russ's book and learned about you. Interested in how your content. Okay, so sorry, I'm just trying to. Oops. Oh, geez. No, I just lost it. I'm just trying to understand the question, which I don't quite understand. So yes, definitely there is always a connection. Well, not, I wouldn't say always, but quite commonly a connection between high estrogen or really just hormonal imbalance in general. And specifically as it relates to adrenal imbalances, cortisol imbalances, adrenal fatigue, adrenal dysfunction, and thyroid dysfunction. So I think that might be what you're asking. So you definitely want to look at that and see if you can, a lot of times if you heal the root cause, which is an adrenal situation, then you can often, maybe not totally get off thyroid medication, but perhaps reduce your thyroid medications. And it's kind of cool because they are very connected. Yeah. Yes, you will be able to view the webinar at a later time. I will send that all. You'll get that all in 24 hours. You will get this whole thing. Every time someone asks a question, it moves me and I can't get my thing. Does having an ablation of your uterus affect hormones? Yes, it will to some degree, but it's not enough to, it's not enough to where you don't have hormones. So I think that's what we all need to remember is like, again, hysterectomy, partial hysterectomy, menopause, ablation, that is going to change things a little bit. So you have to find maybe your new normal, but that does not mean that you don't have hormones and that you don't have to worry about your hormones. You should still always be trying to balance those. My sex drive has gone down, and when I do have intercourse, oh my gosh, every time. Darn it. My sex drive has gone down, and when I do have intercourse, my orgasms are very mild. I've been keto for 16 months, lost 35 pounds, and eating maybe 1,600 calories. I don't track, 26, 28-day cycle, and about 4 to 5 days long. I would, first of all, let's make sure that you're in ketosis. So make sure you're testing for ketones. Low sex drive is probably one of the biggest reasons or biggest signs of hormonal imbalance, of course. Obviously, because that's not normal. Like really your sex drive should kind of correspond with your cycle. So, you'll notice fluctuations, of course, but there should be peaks and valleys, I guess we'll say. And to not have that is definitely a sign that something is off, something's up. It could be estrogen dominance. It could be low testosterone. Those are quite common. It could just be low cortisol. So I think definitely something to where you want to understand why. So you want to get that testing done and see what's going on. But I would, you're definitely not eating enough food. 1,600 calories, even though you don't track. So that could be why you're causing a lot of stress on your body and it's showing up in your sex drive and lack of orgasm. So I would look at that, eat enough food, eat enough nutrients, make sure you're in ketosis. And then look at your hormones. And just quickly, this brings up testing for hormones. So like I mentioned, I do saliva hormone testing. I've said this a million times that I have to keep saying it. I recommend saliva or urine testing. I do not recommend blood testing. So you will commonly get that from your doctor and they're very inaccurate. I see it every day in my, not every day anymore. But when I was working one-on-one with people, I would see it in my practice where we would get their saliva test results and we'd get their blood test results and they'd be so different. So different, and blood tests would show fine. Saliva test shows not fine at all. So really important to get the right testing done. And quite often you'll have to work with a functional medicine practitioner to do so. If you're trying to lose weight, how can you freely eat without restriction? I'm really trying to find the balance because I want to lose all the extra weight I've gained the past 2 years. I'm not sure how to do this in the best possible way for me. Well, you have to understand that your weight gain or inability to lose weight is not because just it's not just food related. It is a symptom of something deeper. So it's where you now have the ability to find out what that something deeper is and work to heal that. And like I have done and shown you in this whole thing here, stress and not eating enough food is a stressor, right? So being on a diet is a stressor to your body. Stress causes hormonal imbalance and a cortisol response. Those things trigger weight gain and or inability to lose weight. So again, it's that cycle. It's time to break the cycle and just eat to nourish your body. And that's what will cause healing to take place in your body. And that healing is what will then cause weight loss. So it's not directly related to calories in versus calories out or amount of fat or amount of food or whatever we've been taught. It's not that. It's something much deeper. I'm dealing with a lot of stress lately. My body hurts and I know it's inflamed. I took myself off working out from the gym 4 to 6 days a week. I've gained about 8 pounds and I'm trying to get off the sugars and decrease my carbs. I'm a little worried about all the fat intake with keto due to high cholesterol. Is keto really right for me? Well, I mean, that's something you have to ask for yourself. I think when people say, is keto right for me? The only response I can say is give it a shot. Why not? I can't answer that for you and you can't answer that for yourself until you try it. Right. So, there are a million people who are doing keto and not having any issue with their cholesterol. So I think that should be kind of a dead subject at this point. There's so many, it's just not a thing. It's just not a thing. And there are a lot of resources that you can go to learn more. I have several podcasts on the topic at Keto for Women, about the topic of cholesterol and how it's not, that doesn't correlate, that doesn't respond. And cholesterol itself isn't any sort of marker of really anything. So a lot of times actually cholesterol lowers if you have high cholesterol and then you go keto because, that's kind of how our bodies work. So I wouldn't not do it because of that. It would more so just, I think that you should try it. And I think that you should see, I think that you would definitely see a significant decrease in your body pain, which would be really nice because then you could get back to working out. So just try it. And that's the only way you can determine if it's right for you. Do you believe keto increases fertility? Great question. Yes, I do. I do. And I'm actually going to have somebody on the Keto for Women show in the next month, I think, that talks about fertility. But yes, I definitely do, because what we want to do in a lot of cases with fertility, obviously you want your hormones to be as regular and balanced and robust as possible. That's what increases your chance of creating a baby. So we need all of that to be in play. And that's what keto does, as you saw throughout the presentation, is really increases your overall hormone production when you can decrease that stress level, but also provides the cholesterol necessary to produce the ketones, to produce the hormones, and makes them nice and robust and balanced too. Okay, we'll do a few more. Hi, is it possible to register for the Fat Burning Female Project, even if one's not living in the US? Thanks for your great work and inspiration. Oh, thank you. Yeah, totally. Lots of women not in the US doing the Fat Burning Female Project. You can do it from anywhere. It's so great. You'll just have a little bit of different times for the live calls and stuff, but it's all good. They're recorded. What could be the cause of hormonal acne? Keto diet did not remedy this for me. I'm also dairy-free, in the midst of collecting urine from my 30-day Dutch test. Perfect, but anxious to know if I'm on the right track. So you will know. You'll know when you get those results back what's causing your hormonal acne. A lot of times, it depends on where it's at too. If it's kind of on your chin, that could be more of a sign of like increased testosterone, maybe a PCOS type situation. And if it's more so like jawline, it could be like estrogen dominant, or it could be something totally unrelated, like a food sensitivity. But if you think it's hormonal, if it's coming around the time of your cycle, then it's definitely, obviously, I would say one of those two, estrogen dominance or a heightened testosterone. And keto, again, you can do keto and it cannot help you if maybe like the outline that we talked about today isn't happening. So maybe you're not in ketosis, maybe you're not eating enough food, maybe you're eating inflammatory foods, maybe you haven't worked on the other stress in your life. There's a lot of situations that's why I laid out what I had laid out today, so that you can kind of do a checklist and see like, oh, well, maybe I didn't do this as part of my keto situation. So, okay, I think I'm gonna have to stop here just so that we're not here forever. But what I'll do is I'm gonna do a follow-up to this on Keto for Women. And so it'll probably be in not this week, but next week. So I'll take all the questions that I had submitted via email, and I'll take the rest of the questions here and I'll answer them there. And it'll be like basically a keto hot seat, but just for keto for hormones. Is that cool? Are we all good with that? Thank you everyone so much for being here. It's super fun. It's so great to see so many in person too, because it just fuels my fire to actually be able to talk to people live. So thank you so much. You will be getting a recording of this in 24 hours. Tell your friends, share it with your friends, whatever. If you want to be part of the Fat Burning Female Project, I'd love to have you. Make sure you use that code. And other than that, I think that's it. And we will continue this chat over at Keto for Women. If you don't already listen, you can find it on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube, everywhere. Oh, and I think I'm going to post this on YouTube too, if you ever want to refer back to it there. So anyway, thanks everyone for listening. Have a great day and we'll be in touch. Bye.